Glen Mesaros was born in Elizabeth, New Jersey on March 18, 1964. He has two sisters, Linda and Donna, although neither served in the military. His father, Carl Mesaros, served in the military for about 5 years. He also served as a sergeant and was a commercial artist, while his mother, Florence Mesaros, worked in a department store for over 20 years. Mr. Mesaros chose to attend Harvard University and go to medical school. His father always told them,
if you want to go to medical school, you better go in the military.
He took his father's advice and applied to the different programs. He chose to enter the Army at age 22 while he was still in college. While Mr. Mesaros most likely wouldn't have enlisted in the Army if he hadn't attended medical school, he was extremely happy that he did. About it, he said,
It was a very life-changing and enriching experience.
The reason he chose to enlist in the Army was so that his tuition for college and medical school would be paid for. At the time Mr. Mesaros enlisted in the Army, it was year for year. For every year of schooling you went through, you had to give them a year of service. He spent a total of almost 10 years in active duty and about 5 years in the reserves. Out of 9 specialty choices for surgeons, otolaryngology drew him in. While he was in medical school, he witnessed a 36-hour surgery. After seeing it, he knew his choice was to be an ENT. He watched them remove a tumor from the man's face and then reconstruct it.
Basically, I don't know why anyone wouldn't be an ENT surgeon.
He takes care of kids and adults, but he also gets to perform different surgeries and many other different things. The final reason he chose to be an ENT surgeon was because of the anatomy. The head and neck anatomy amazed and fascinated him. When Mr. Mesaros departed for training camp, it was a 6-week-long camp during his summer break of medical school. He did his training with other medical students, so it was more specialized and not the same as a regular boot camp. Their camp,
Scaled down to doctor levels.
Although he went through basic training, he does not consider himself a soldier.
Real tough, and we kind of got a flavor of what it was like to be a real soldier.
He did not go through the grueling training many people think of when they hear basic training, but he still went through physical activity, learning to march, and learning the language. Although Mr. Mesaros was not a combat soldier, he had a very important role in the military. Mesaros worked to repair head and neck injuries on injured soldiers and veterans. He served at Fort Lewis in Washington and at West Point. While at West Point, he operated on soldiers who were injured during training. The most common injury he would repair were broken noses. Soldiers would accidentally be hit by something during training, and he would operate on them. After serving at West Point, he was transferred to Fort Lewis, where he operated on soldiers, veterans, and soldiers' families. While serving at Fort Lewis, he was part of a head and neck fast team. They were prepared to handle mass casualties, and if at any time a hospital needed to be built somewhere quickly, the team would be sent. He never got deployed to do that and served during a time when the United States wasn't involved in any wars. He considered himself very lucky to have served during this time and to be able to leave when he did. Mr. Mesaros put in his request to leave the military right before 9/11 occurred. The Army can say that no one is allowed to leave during a certain period of time because of special war circumstances. He was afraid that was going to happen because of the awful day, but it never did, and he was extremely thankful for that. He was able to leave service without any problems when he wanted to. During Mr. Mesaros' military career, he gave up a lot for his country, but his family also sacrificed a huge portion of their lives as well. Oftentimes, during his medical training, he wouldn't get home to his family until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. He didn't have a lot of free time, but when he did, he spent it with his wife and children. Mrs. Mesaros is from New York City and was not so excited about Mr. Mesaros' career choice. She felt just the opposite. But despite that, they got married and raised a family. Together, they learned about the opportunities and people that the military community had to offer them. During Mr. Mesaros' career, he met many friends and families for his family to grow up with. The Mesaros family lived in a great community with families that were in similar situations as them. Mr. Mesaros' military career wasn't completely perfect, though. He was in constant jeopardy of being deployed away from his family, and this put a large amount of stress on them. Towards the end of his career, Mr. Mesaros left the military for his family. His wife moved around a lot when she was a kid, so he left for the stability of them. Over the course of Mr. Mesaros' career, it became apparent that his family is a prime example of any military family and the sacrifices they make for their country. Thank you for your service, Major Mesaros.